Hello and welcome. My name is Kevin Anderson. I am the director of WAN-IFRA's Digital Revenue Network. But until June, I was actually the director of insights at PugPig, which is a mobile app developer. So for the last 3 years, I have been immersed in the world of apps. And that's what we're going to do with you for the next hour is immerse you in the world of apps. To discuss the latest developments in apps and also some really incredible insights from a product director in terms of product manager in terms of apps, and also an app company like the one that I used to work for. So first, let me kind of set the scene, and then we'll dive right in. So so just a really high level kind of overview, kind of the role of apps in keeping loyal audiences engaged. So in our Congress, the WAN-IFRA Congress earlier this year in Krakow, Emily Withrow, the vice president of product, said that they're seeing, like everyone, a decline in referrals from search and social. And really that one-to-one relationship, that direct relationship with subscribers and with their readers had become their main focus. So they think that there's a ticking time clock in terms of their reliance on search and social. And I think we've seen this now with the rollout of in certain countries with AI summaries. We know here, I'm based in the UK right now. We've heard some publishers who've seen radical declines up to 60% since AI summaries were rolled out. So they think that their apps, super serving their most loyal audiences plays a role in their response to this major shift in terms of referral and traffic. Now, the role of mobile. I think if you looked at your analytics, most of you will probably see something quite similar in terms of the dominance of mobile in terms of your overall audience. But then when you take and look at your subscriber engagement, and Muj Ali from the Financial Times will definitely look and zoom in and reinforce this. But just last week at our newsroom summit in Copenhagen, Cormac Burke from Mediahuis Ireland was talking about their new metric to sort of that they're rallying around and really focusing their efforts. And so they have a single metric, SAT, subscriber attention time, and this allows them to understand across their all of the services that they provide, where are their subscribers spending the majority of their time. And what they found is that 85% of all subscriber attention time is on mobile. Now, that's mobile web and mobile apps. And so they definitely, both of those have a role to play. And we'll hear a little bit more about that. But 85% of subscriber time is on mobile for Mediahuis in Ireland. Now, things that drive mobile performance is I'm just going to zoom through this and then we'll hear more detail. And like I said, I spent the last 3 years sort of immersed in web and mobile analytics, app analytics, and seeing over 300 brands, the performance that they saw. So, and I'm sure Heikki can talk about some of that with some of his customers. But just some messages that you will get reinforced with data is onboarding is incredibly critical. The first 48 hours after a customer downloads that app, that's really a critical time to start to build habits. Now, if you look at overall industry statistics about retention when it comes to apps, how many people continue to use that app after 1 day, and then how many people use that app after 30 days, you'll hear some pretty sobering statistics. But I would say from our experience and the data that I had access to over the last 3 years, publishers outperform the general app audience. So about 50% were still using that app, a publisher's app after 30 days. So some of the really stark numbers you'll see in the industry from some of the major players, whether they're push players or whatever, they will say that there's, kind of 75% fall off after first day. That's not the same with publishers. They see much greater retention. Now, if you want to, as part of that onboarding, as part of that initial phase of engaging users, push notifications are really key. Now, you're not going to get everyone to sign up for push notifications or to opt into push notifications, and you'll get open rates that will probably be surprisingly low. But what we found is the difference between publishers that had 0.2% open rate and the difference between publishers who just were able to move that open rate up to 2%. the folks that had the publishers that had 2.5% open rate of their push notifications increased engagement overall in terms of sessions and page views or screen views. They increased it by 2.5 times. So it really moves the dial. And one of the things that drives engagement with push notifications is making sure that they're targeted and personalized in some way. So giving your audience the ability to decide which push notifications they receive. It's a simple thing. It's built into most platforms, but that was really something that dramatically increased engagement. Another thing that we found was e-editions. Now, it's really interesting. When we dug into the data, you actually had two separate app audiences. You had your e-edition audiences, and then you had your audiences that behaved much more. They didn't look at the e-editions. They just used it as an app. They used the push notifications. They went through the screens and they clicked into things that were of interest to them. The e-edition audiences had 27 sessions per user per month. It was dramatically higher. The session times that they had were dramatically higher. In essence, they were using the app much as they would use your print product. And what we're seeing at WAN-IFRA more broadly in the industry is that e-editions are a great way to transition print audiences. If you are a publisher, and we did hear from some European publishers last week at our newsroom summit, there are some publishers who are already planning for the elimination of print. So following what the Independent has done in the UK, there are publishers who are seeing that print has a lifetime of 3 years for them, and they've set a deadline for them to move off of print. E-editions are a great way to transition that audience into a digital experience. The last thing I'll just mention, puzzles. Everybody on this call can probably talk about their own personal puzzle habit, and it was amazing. We saw puzzles. There was one app that PugPig built. I have to be careful about the we. I'm a WAN-IFRA we, not a PugPig we anymore. But one app that PugPig built for a publisher, 25% of all of the time was spent in puzzles. Now, they weren't just puzzle addicts, though. People who use puzzles actually were much more engaged with the content and the app overall. So they would come for the puzzles and they'd stay for the content. So just to put a number on that, this is Stylist. Now, this is a magazine app, but they found that it was one of their best retention tools. So if apps are a great retention tool, puzzles are a great feature within an app to sort of drive retention. So more subscribers play the games, and games users in general are more than twice as likely to come back to the app. So again, reinforcing that key idea that onboarding people, getting them engaged, push notifications and puzzles are two great tactics. But now I'm going to turn this over to our first speaker, Muj from the Financial Times, who's going to talk to you in great detail about an amazingly successful use case and talk to you about the strategies that they're using to drive engagement with their app and how that's driving their overall success. So I'll turn it over to you.
Great. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, we can.
So first and foremost, hello everyone. So thanks for having me today. Today, I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of the points that Kevin touched upon around why a mobile app in an organization is an essential thing and not optional when it comes to retaining customers. At the Financial Times, we've seen a fundamental shift in behavior over the past few years, and the app is now really at the center of how people consume news and really build long-term habits. So just a bit of an introduction. So my name is Muj. I'm a group product manager at the Financial Times, leading acquisition, retention, and the FT app. I've spent around about 15 years working across news, media, and streaming from DAZN, Brave Bison, Barclays, and now the FT. And that mix of like journalism, product, and attention-based platforms really has shaped how I think about building like really engaging experiences, especially on mobile. And that's why I'm excited to cover some of the things that I will be today around how consumption has changed over the years, why creating experiences for pockets of time is really critical, and finally, how the app becomes a really powerful retention engine. So we've all felt it, right? Mobile is now the dominant way that people just consume content, right? But the degree of that shift is way bigger than a lot of people realize. The way people consume news has really fundamentally shifted. Mobile isn't secondary anymore. It's a primary and a huge proportion of our audience at the FT consume via mobile. Nearly 70% of the daily traffic of subscribers come through the app. And so that's not through the web, not through desktop, through specifically the app. And it's also the most engaged channel that we have. And this tells us something super, super clear. Like if we want to retain these customers and these subscribers, we have to meet them where they are, and that's on the mobile app. When you look at our data, app visits are continuing to grow and app sessions are continuing to grow. And this isn't small organic growth, it's really a behavioral shift. Users are increasingly relying on the app at the EFT as their go-to touch point when consuming news. And that's not just the FT story. Like when I've spoken to different publishers are really investing in mobile first content like podcast, newsletters, audio, and video. They're really expanding to social networks like TikTok and Instagram to really tackle news avoidance and engage with younger audiences. Tackling news avoidance through things like explainers, briefings, AI summaries is something that we've been focusing on, and investing heavily in a really slick app experience, because ultimately the benchmark for mobile experience is no longer just generic news apps. It's the likes of Instagram and WhatsApp and Netflix and Spotify. These are the benchmarks that people have when it comes to mobile apps now. And the future really belongs to publishers who really deeply understand that mobile behavior and then pair it with the strong content that they have. And especially with the FT, we compare it with the strong brand recognition that we have. For us, the real opportunity is combining that deep insight and trust and quality of the FT journalism. And that's where really the differentiation when it comes to introducing certain experiences in the app happens. So around 3 years ago for the FT, it was a time for a reset and really a time for us to rethink our approach of being mobile first to create that greater long-term retention via the app. So now let's talk about how people actually use the mobile app throughout the day. One of the biggest misconceptions that a lot of people have is only serves for engagement and retention and some things around retention. In reality, it sits across the whole B2C lifecycle at the FT as well as the B2B lifecycle, from consideration to registration to onboarding to content discovery to consumption through account management and renewal. So the thing that we know is the web is a fantastic vehicle for that, like top line around acquisition, consideration, and subscribing. But the app is really the funnel for the engage and retain area at the bottom, the second and third lines around onboarding, finding content, consuming content, and managing renewals of accounts. How you tap into that is really interesting, which I'll talk about a bit more. But what's really interesting is the average app session, and this has been across multiple companies that I've been at, is around about 5 minutes. That's always the case when it comes to mobile apps and news, video services companies that I've been at. And comparing that with 27 minutes on desktop, it really tells us something super, super clear. The app operates within short bursts and short time frames. People come to dip in and dip out with what they need and get what they need and then leave, and then they do that multiple times throughout the day. So the product really must be optimized for these small sessions and these rapid sessions and not the long sessions. Here's some data around the behavior curves that we've got. What's really, really interesting in these behavior curves is where the spikes are for mobile, for the mobile app across the FT. Mobile really dominates early mornings, like during people's commute between that 6 to 7, 9 up until like 8, 9 a.m., as well as evening consumption as well. So desktop dominates work hours. This helps us really design like the content, the notifications, the times that we send certain communications and certain app journeys that align with real world behavior around these kind of behavior lines. So what strategies are the FT using to be able to drive retention on the app? First and foremost, encourage and enable early adoption. We've seen before introducing certain onboarding mechanisms, and we want to introduce more in the future, a high percentage of users drop off just after the first day. That gets worse after the first 7 days and leaves you with like nearly 10% of users by the end of the first month. So the critical path to engage customers is understand how you engage them really, really early on. Firstly, day one, then day 1 to 7, and then day 7 to 30 for us. Give users that value faster and find what that value is within the app and give it as early as possible. You have to be really, really clear also what the value proposition is as early as possible. People, if they do not understand that, we've introduced like a welcome screen, and as soon as someone downloads the app, and that welcome screen has led to higher conversion rates purely because what they get is crystal clear when they open up the app and see that welcome screen. The second thing is building habit with push and personalization. So use behavioral data to really send timely, relevant notifications and support that discovery with the things that people follow. So understand what are they reading, understand what are they consuming, and why they are there in the first place, and then send follow-up push notifications to support things that they have followed as well as things that they are interested in. We've recently introduced an onboarding flow that has increased levels of engagement to come back to the service, because we've looped in what are your interests and what are the topics that you want to follow. The one thing that we have also found recently is that users, if you can push users not just within the mobile app that you have, but in the ecosystem of consumption of mobile apps, and that includes social media. So if you push people to follow you on social media, we found that people who follow us on social media are 3.7 times more engaged, which is a really interesting data point for us that we've recently found. So how can you tap into not just what you do in your mobile app, but the ecosystem of consumption experience that happens when people are on their phone? And then lastly, deepen engagement with multimedia and utility. So audio, podcast, and offline reading create that daily return reason. We've introduced audio listening a few years ago, and subscribers who listen to audio are on average listen to around about 4.5 articles per day compared to around about 2 to 3 articles per day, which is a big jump purely because that engagement mechanism is more sticky. And experiment with live briefings, article queues, say reading, curated lists to increase that kind of session frequency as well with different multimedia and to deepen engagement. So just a little bit more about the different needs off the back of the behavioral diagram. In the morning, it's clear that users want efficiency and want that latest update. They're multitasking, they're commuting, they're brushing their teeth, they're grabbing breakfast. They just literally want a quick skim of top stories that sets them up for the day. And that was really important for us to know that. During the day, people consume news in pockets, 1 minute here, 2 minutes there. It's all about filling those gaps of times, avoiding that laptop that they're so used to utilizing for work and skimming headlines. That's why the clarity and how we show our message, especially in a smaller screen, and that simplicity of how we communicate, how we showcase topics, articles, is really, really important on the mobile app. And in the evenings and weekends, the behavior shifts. We found people want to wrap up the day, relax, unwind, and maybe listen to audio or play a game. And smartphones feel less like work, so the app becomes a place to decompress. And these are all insights that we've got from like really deep user research that we've done over the last year or so to understand user habits. And here's really the data point that ties it all together. Subscribers who use the app are 37% less likely to cancel compared to those who don't. That's one of the strongest correlations that we've seen when it comes to app app usage in the app. And to summarize some of these insights that I've shared, mobile users fill time using their phones throughout the day. App users spend less time per session, but return more frequently. So the job is clear. For the EFT, we focus on understand when they come, understand why, and optimize that experience around those specific small moments that customers come in. Now let's talk about how the app then becomes a retention machine. So I'm going to quickly skim over this because I'm conscious of time. So the app is our most powerful channel for building long-term subscriber habits. We see a higher usage, so a significant share of our most engaged subscribers use the app daily. Lower churn, app users are 37% less likely to cancel compared to non-app users, and habit formation. The app lives on the home screen, supports push notifications, supports offline reading, and is faster and more immersive than web when it comes to your daily routine and throughout that daily routine. The strategies that really drive retention in the app. So number one, encourage users to that early adoption. So give users value faster, have super clear app value proposition, and make it super easy to skim read, build habit with on and off the app, and deepen engagement with that multimedia, as I've mentioned before. But what's really interesting is if you have built in-app purchases, the native app subscription elements really is the thing that helps to unlock that frictionless wheel around engagement. So frictionless renewals, build that stronger retention and platform level reach with things like push notification, offline mode, things that only the mobile apps can do. So a couple of things that we're focused on is really looking at frictionless billing and utilizing and doubling down on the Apple and Google mechanisms to manage subscriptions around that kind of engagement, those engagement curves to reduce churn due to things like payment failure or involuntary churn, where involuntary churn through these channels. It's also a place where subscribers are less likely to cancel if the billing is handled from a platform that they trust. A huge amount of users utilize in-app purchases across Apple and Google already to purchase subscriptions. So how can you double down on the trust element when it comes to payment services where they've already got a card on file with Apple or Google, and it can be as easy to subscribe with one click. There are also specific promotion tools that Apple have and Google have, for example, intro pricing, win-back offers, and ways to experiment with these things as well around the app. So recently, we've just introduced some win-back offers. It's an out-of-the-box functionality from Apple, which allows us to showcase for churned subscribers, people who have cancelled, and within the month that they still a subscriber, we can show certain win-back offers with no code. And that's like an excellent tool for us to tap into to be able to retain our customers further and like tap into showcasing more value during that period where customers have cancelled, but they still have access to their subscription. So that's they're the main points that I wanted to go through. So we're just to kind of like close, we're in a moment where mobile is really rapidly evolving and our products must evolve with it. The publishers who win will be those that align their experience with that consumer behavior. So not that we wish that, like basically if you know that consumer behavior really, really deeply, you'll be able to win in terms of getting subscribers to stay for longer. So here's three things that I'd like you to walk away with. Mobile behavior has transformed, and so must we. We must look at that behavior and design for that. Designing specifically for that short pocket of time and make it super, super effortless to dip in and dip out. And knowing that your app is a retention engine through building early adoption, building those habits, and leaning into those kind of Apple and Google in-app purchase mechanisms and leveraging those capabilities especially when they're out of the box. So thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to chat more about anything mobile, retention, subscribers, and product at the FT, then feel free to reach me on LinkedIn, and I'm always happy to exchange ideas and drop me a message. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Muj. And I can attest that he does answer his LinkedIn messages. Otherwise, he would not be on this webinar. So thanks so much for that. We've got a number of questions queued up, and I'm gonna just pull out this one, but we'll get to the others from Maria and Benjamin Schmidt. So Benjamin asks, do you do something specific for people subscribing on the web to get them on apps?
Yes. So we know that a lot of acquisitions come from acquisition from the website. A lot of our SEO, a lot of our advertising pushes people to the website. And if they don't have the app, firstly, they are pushed to the website. The first thing that we do is, firstly, we have an onboarding mechanism, and we know that because the app is a huge engagement and retention driver, in the onboarding flow, we're introducing a prompt to push people to the mobile app. Throughout the actual website, there's also different points at which we showcase the mobile app and ask them to download it. And if they are seen to be on an iOS or Android device, there is a banner, there is a persistent banner that showcases at the top when people are on the mobile web browser like Chrome or Safari, whatnot. So making sure that it is front and center, that you are really nudging people onto the mobile apps is really, really important. Those nudges, like people just think, oh, it's just a tiny little banner or whatnot, but if you see that there are key retention drivers, making those nudges really, really visible and clear and persistent is really important for us as a principle. So to move people to the mobile apps.
So this is a question from an attendee. Do you have a breakdown percentage between web and app and maybe mobile and app? Because I do know that that's a good statistics. Or is there any rough mention you can share?
I can't say off the top of my head. However, the web traffic is massively growing. This year was the first year that web traffic got overtaken by app traffic. So the first time in many years, and that's why it's becoming a really strategic thing for us to focus on at the FT. Yeah, that's all I can say without the data to hand. I don't want to call out the false data.
No, I can add to that because we did it across the whole fleet of 300 apps that PugPig built, and I think the one thing is, and we would say this, that of your overall digital audience, or of the overall digital audience, we saw maybe 10% of the digital audience would use the app. But when you look at that from a subscription standpoint, as you were saying, it's 70%. It's a majority of your traffic. One of the apps that I know about the Baltimore Banner, which is a local app. So, I mean, the Financial Times thinking about a niche national app or an international app. This was a local app that serves Baltimore in the United States. They now have more subscribers come to their home screen on their app than they do the home screen on their webpage. So I think, again, it really depends on how you want to slice this. If you want to look at your overall digital universe, or if you want to look at those subscribers or registered users, because I think to your point, the app being an acquisition tool now, not just a retention tool, I think is something else that's changed. So maybe I've got time for one more question here. So Benjamin, I asked a question from him already. So let me say here. The Maya is asking the segment, do you have a breakdown between organic and paid acquisition?
Not off the top of my head. I don't have the specific data. However, organic is not as high as paid data, like traffic that's coming through. So it's interesting because we are reassessing our whole approach to that. As you mentioned, touched upon with ChatGPT coming in and search engine changing, as well as the reject all banners that we're having to introduce, and consent cookie consent changes that are coming over that have come in as well as over the next year. That whole area is being really, really looked at, and there is a massive push for us to focus on first party data to be able to own firstly that relationship between us and the customer versus going through kind of a paid media route, and build out the channels for how we communicate with our customer, whether that be in-app messages, push notifications, emails, and build so that in the long term, there's that kind of greater personalization around what we can offer them to offer a customer the right product at the right time. I think there's the paid media split versus the organic traffic split is a good question, but I think a better and more interesting thing that is to know is that publishers are actively reassessing how they are getting paid traffic versus organic traffic, because as that kind of landscape changes, the risk also increases. And if we, as a publisher and as an organization, if we do not do anything about this, we forecast or foresee that traffic will start to decline because the routes of traffic start to change, and we need to optimize those channels.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we just heard this last week in our newsroom summit. If you think about the amount of money that news media used to pay in the print era for marketing, and then translate that to the amount of money that we've paid in for most of our digital channels, we really focused on that organic reach for too long, and now we're having to sort of pay to reach audiences, and it's just the reality of it all. Thanks so much, Muj. So now I'm going to turn it over to Heikki, who's going to talk to us about Choicely.
Is the screen visible for it? No, it's not.
It's not full screen right now, Heikki. So
Yeah,
we can see it. There you go. Cool.
Now it's full. Okay. So thanks, Kevin. Thanks, Muj, for really good openings and really good insights from Financial Times. So I will go to a bit more, let's say, even more concrete level and a kind of a product approach. So talking about speed, agility, and also cost effectiveness of creating native mobile apps, and I would say in the next generation of technology stacks. So that's pretty much about my topic. But I want all of you in the audience to get involved. We're going to do a brave live demo in about 7 to 8 minutes. So if you now have your phones nearby, please go and download an app called Choicely Studio. It's free at App Store and Google Play. And then through that app, you will see some effects that we'll show on the live demo in some minutes. So I will move further. So my name is Heikki Rotko. I'm executive chairman for a company called Choicely. Choicely is not as well known as Financial Times yet. We are a technology company based in Helsinki and Zurich. We have been focusing on mobile apps since late 2019. And we have clients all over the world, in over 50 countries on 6 continents. We focus globally on media, entertainment, sports clients currently. We work with big clients like Eurovision Song Contest. Their global app runs on Choicely. In the US, the Grammys signed a multi-year deal with us, plus many, many, many others. So we are really serious about our business and focusing on native mobile apps. Me as a person, I'm a media guy. I've been in media all my life. before becoming a little bit more on the tech side. So I've been in a board of a business-to-business news publishing company. I've been in the board of a magazine publishing company. Operationally, I was working for the biggest private broadcaster in Finland for 18 years. Ended up being deputy CEO and CEO, and we had like 150 journalists in our news team. So I hope that I understand what news publishing is about. So let's move onwards, and I want to start a bit in a broader picture, and this is really, I think this is superbly important. The freedom of speech, freedom of press is under threat. You see there's so much dark red, which is like really critical situation, then red and orange, where situations are not good in terms of what kind of news are out there. So many fake news and different kind of really ugly things are going around. And happily, we have some light blue and blue, and the countries where our company come from, and I personally come from Finland. Happily number 5. I currently live in Switzerland. It's number 9. It's okay. We want to, with the things that we represent here, is that we also want to support all sizes of media and news organization, even the smallest ones, medium-sized ones, to have as good of digital tools as the big boys, as like FT with large resources. So this is really crucial from a fundamental point of supporting democracy in the world. So why news app matter? We pretty much touched on the things. Mobile, it's good to hear the numbers from FT. The mobile numbers are so dominant. Loyalty, building loyalty with any media outlet, you need people to come back. You need people to spend time, whether it's return visits, whether it's minutes spent on your content, which comes from the session length. And also we'll have some examples on that with things that keep people there for longer. And then the first-party data, it's hugely important because websites and apps are first-party data. When you rely on social media, somebody else owns it. It's TikTok, Chinese guys, the American players, and we support always the content owner. And we understand social media is really important, but it's more like getting audiences from social media into your first-party platforms, which are websites and apps and native apps. And paying subscribers, that is and that will be the main source of revenues for news organizations for sure. One thing which is a little bit undervalued is that different kind of interactive features that increase engagement are not widely used within news. They're quite much more used within entertainment and sports. So we can compare since we work within all these fields. In general, the typical challenge is that we see that with native mobile apps, they are costly to produce and maintain. Then also the production cycles, kind of different kind of changes, kind of the other side, opposite side of the agility is there. We see it from our clients. Things happen slow. When you create native apps, you need iOS guy, Android guy or girl, backend, web. So you need teams to produce it. And then we'll have an example on how to do real-time updates on existing apps, and also to streamline everything with the backend systems, whether they are CRMs, CMSs, or advertising serving systems. So we believe in streamlining everything nicely together. So the solution that Choicely has is it has all the features that we should have with any good news apps, like personalized news feeds, subscriptions, push messages, integrating your social media feeds into the app automatically from YouTube, from Instagram, whatever, TikTok, whatever you like. So they would rather be in your platform than outside. Articles, content, paid advertising, and sponsorship to have the advertising budget on your sites and apps, and then of course paywalls, typical things that are there. So this is how we see the world, and these are important things, and they have to be in any good news app. The things that many don't have is this engagement tool. This is now example of a sports news. So Choicely has 12 different Instagram style UIs for audience engagement. And these examples are in sports, but I see that similarly you should use this in economics, business, culture, any kind of news to get your audiences, give their opinions real time, and then the journalist can use that data as source of their next article, and also have people spend more time within your apps when you have more things to play with that are relevant. I'll show you an example in the demo as well. So to summarize next generation technology, we can say that with the platform solution where everything is basically coded already, one will save 50 to 80% of mobile app budget over the course of 5 years. We can launch apps even in days, but easily within weeks, not months. SDK, so these features like engagement, what I showed you, can be embedded to any existing app, like to the Financial Times apps or any other. We can bring in stuff which would increase the engagement, and the real-time updates you'll see in a minute. And when we work with corporate clients like media houses, there's of course full support from the Choicely team, who's specialist on not just technology, but we understand the world of media. So there's a couple of references on the news app side. Here's a small country called Bermuda. They have 60,000 people. They have a very nice news app built on Choicely with the budget that they can afford. It's not massive, but it's up and running, including their TV, radio, and all those things. Another one from Iceland, from where their public broadcaster RUV has been using our solution for their TV, for their radio and sports and other stuff. Here's an example. They had a parliamentary election 1 year ago. 12 party leaders were in a live TV panel for 3 hours. Audience were rating the performance of each party leader with the star, 0 to 5 stars. And then they showed the results on the website afterwards. And the lady who got the most stars became the prime minister. So engagement with some real-time stats. Okay, now thumbs up, we go to the live demo. We hope that it will work. It should work. So now we're in Choicely Studio. This everybody can access it, plays on choicely.com. And we're gonna make an app, first version app in 90 seconds. So we're gonna do a copy paste of an URL of a Spanish newspaper El Pai. We type it on the box there, and the URL is there. And now we start going to the AI starts building the app on the right-hand side of the screen. This should take about 90 seconds. And I want to emphasize, this is a native app. This is not a web app. This is a native iOS, native Android, what it's building here. And you see that it starts having the kind of the structure. There will be the navigation buttons at the bottom, some first news, also the kind of the logo on the top hand side, and it's still thinking while it's building, but it will. And now you should also take your Choicely apps ready, because you're going to be using them in a very short period of time when this AI enabled app building has taken place and has finished. Now it's finished. So now you take the Choicely Studio app, which you'd hopefully downloaded, and now there's a button, there's a bar in the middle of the app where it says scan. So scan the QR code on the screen, and then you will have this app on your phone. El Pais, I have it in my phone, what we just built in 90 seconds. And now we will move back to the editing studio. So, and we will do 3 things. The app is here, it runs, it has international news, economy news, culture news, all the news are from the day. So it's not the demo, it's a real app up and running. Now we're gonna change the top color of the top bar. It's white, we just wanna do this, we make it purple. and we'll push update on the CMS that we have. And now we hope there's no demo effect. It's a purple bar. And if there's 1 million apps out there globally, they would update real time like this. So let's continue. So Kevin was talking about puzzles and stuff. So let's put a little game to have a fourth button on the bottom menu. So we make a game button, and we're going to have a little puzzle game or kind of a crosses and knots game there. So now there will be the button added on the bottom menu. 3, 2, 1, it's there. You can press the button, and then you have a working knots and crosses game in your phone, which you can play. And of course, you have to find the right three crosses on the top. All right, let's move on. Let's imagine there's a big football game in Spain tonight, El Clásico. So Madrid playing Barcelona. And of course, readers of the El País, or the audiences, they have their opinions who's going to win. So we're going to put the fifth button just because it's tonight. And we don't do anything heavy. We don't need any coders. We add another button that is called El Clásico. And now it will hopefully appear. Yes, it's on the bottom of your app on the right-hand side. And you have El Clásico there. And now you can vote who will win. So I don't know who I'll win. I can vote both. So thank you for your vote, Heikki. And it's working there. So this is kind of the quick demo that what the real-time updates mean. We know that news organizations work in the real-time pace, 24/7, 365 a year. If there's need for changes, other changes than just the content, one can react. And also for commercial purposes, if you want your news app to become Christmas-like on the 12th of December, you can do it. Put the new designs on, launch the whole new app with the Christmas look. And that may be appealing for the users, but especially for the advertisers. So to have a summary, we know that news publishers need tools that are comprehensive, safe, scaling, fast, flexible, and with, let's say, low maintenance cost. So we want to reduce the cost, production time. You saw real-time demos that I just did, and the technical overhead would be low. And then, of course, one can build apps standalone or from scratch without technology, but we can embed existing pieces into your existing apps, like the engagement tools that I showed you quickly, like with surveys and polls and stuff like that. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm open for questions. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Heikki. That was amazing. And having spent 3 years in an app building company, I know all of I know all that's going into that. So I guess the thing is that often with platforms like this, there's a trade-off between ease and speed and features. So let me put this another way. So you've just shown what you can do in sort of a couple of minutes. What are some of the other added features and things that you do over that kind of week build that you've done with your customers that really kind of drive the type of experiences that app audiences expect?
Yeah, that's the right question. Of course, demo is a short one. We can do anything within a week. I mean, typically it's integration to the content management system that the news team is using. That would be one. Then typically integration into the CRM where the subscribers are, whether they are free subscribers or paid subscribers, so paywalls, subscribing systems. And then typically integrations to the ad servers, whether it's a banner ad server or video ad server. This typically, if we start working with a new media house, each of these integrations will take maximum 1 to 3 days, and we do it one time, and then it runs for everything. And this is, I think, one of the beauties of our system. We built the iOS, Android, and the back end really, really well, but it's an open system because we understand we have to integrate into legacy systems of a media house, so it becomes a fully functional thing, and the app access a really nice UI, but there's no limits. There's nothing that we couldn't integrate this into. Salesforce, Marketing Cloud, any systems. We've done tens of these. It's just everyday work, and our technology is very advanced, so it happens with very small time and with very small one-time cost.
And that leads me to a question that we've just had in the chat here. If you add a new menu or feature, does the user have to upgrade it, or does it so often, you know, to take the latest and greatest, then you've got a conversion issue where you've got to get the user to download that. So with that new menu or features added, does the user then have to download a new version?
No, it happens. I mean, I had my app, everything happens without the end user doesn't have to do anything. So that's the beauty of it. So when we have like Eurovision apps, we have millions of users. We could have done these changes, and they would update real time. And also, I would say like 95% of any updates, there's not any need for the company, our client, to do another App Store or Google Play approval. In some heavy change cases, it might be that we have to do another approval, and in App Store or Google Play. 97% of cases, we can do real-time changes. And this is what clients like, because they can launch an app and it's an iterative journey. They'll watch the data, what works, what doesn't work. We can make changes like every day. And apps keep updating, and with no extra cost. It's just, you know, creative people, commercial people doing the changes. Tech is done. And our business model is software as a service. It's, as I said, compared to traditional way, one will save a lot of money. And we have inbuilt like hundreds of features that are there underneath the hood. I can't go into details in this 15 minutes, but it's well built for scalability, cybersecurity, accessibility, all the features that large companies would demand. We've gone through these tests with our existing clients.
So I'm going to ask you both this question, because I think that you know, Heikki, I think you probably, just like we did at my old company, have access to a lot of different data. So Maria has said, is this down to upgrades in apps in recent years? So she says, have you done any upgrades to your apps? So I think that's probably more for you, Muj. Or do you think that the increased usage is related to new features or just general trends? So do you think that that the apps are getting more performant, more features to them, or do you think that it's just people have transitioned to mobile? So I'll start with you, Heikki.
Well, I mean, it's since people when they use the app, use within mobile, we think that it's a really important thing that the apps can be as flexible as anybody on the content side of the business or commercial side of the business wants. And this is more like taking the slowness of the tech away, since we run it on a platform technology that I showed you. We want to give it time for journalists to think about their work, how to engage audience, how to make better content. And then on the commercial side, the advertising sales side of the business as well.
So Muj, I mean, do you think that this is additional features, or do you think that this is just a general trend? I mean, what are the levers you think that are, or the things that are driving these trends?
Yeah, so I think it's really two things. As I said in my presentation, mobile behavior, like the behaviors of people are just changing and moving towards mobile, where internet access is just available everywhere, and a lot of time spent is on their mobile devices. The second thing is that applications are becoming more and more advanced. The AI tools, the video consumption experiences, the audio consumption experiences, competitors like the likes of Netflix and Spotify and New York Times, they are setting a really, really high bar for what people expect the general apps should have. So then when you look at a premium experience like that, and then you move to another application, you also expect a level of that premium experience. And I think that chase for organizations is always going to be there, especially with news organizations that are like one step behind from the more audio, video, like type organizations. But I think it's part of those two things. Behaviors are moving more towards mobile, and people's expectations for mobile apps is getting higher and more demanding. So that then requires more things that people expect off the back of it. I'm sure, Heikki, you've probably seen the number of things that people are requesting in terms of configurations, way more and getting more and more vast because more is being done with on the rest of the landscape. Yeah, so that's my take.
I think that is exactly. I mean, people are used to very high level of user experience with mobile apps, as you said, and this is what we always wanna match that. And even for smaller companies, if you have a media house with 10 million euros of annual revenue, you need to have the same level of UIs and tech than the big companies. Otherwise, the users may just rely on social media, which are built with super advanced and high budgets and skilled people and the latest of this and that. So we also want to democratize the high quality app access to smaller news organizations, and with our pricing we can. The Bermuda was a good example. They could not have afforded like a big production for their the universe of 60,000 people plus some tourists, of course.
So on that, in terms of app features, one of the first questions we had was from Benjamin Schmidt. Tactics that drive engagement. Are there any experience with gamification in news apps, like collecting badges, streaks, points, or something like that? I mean, I know I've got a music app that tells me about my streaks. My fitness app obviously tells me about my streaks and when I don't break my streaks. But I mean, is there anybody who's driving anything like that in the space where they're trying to drive increased frequency through some tactic, whether it's gamification or otherwise?
In our experience, gamification is widely used within sports, and then used within entertainment. With the news apps that we've done, it's been more like having the interaction with through the polls and surveys and things like that, but not kind of games gathering type. But it's possible. It's just adding one feature that includes that. And that might be as we see how many people play these puzzles and kind of like very non-news thing, but it still keeps them within the app and more time spent, and then they go to the news side as well. So I think creative things like this can be very interesting and relevant to try on. And if it doesn't work, you take it out. It's like you put it in and you take it out real time.
Yeah, I would say I would endorse that because I've got two sides of the experience, one at DAZN, online sports streaming service, as well as the Financial Times. And you can see, like, you have to look at who your users are and what their expectations are and what they also do. We used a tool at DAZN called App Annie, and that was to also look at the ecosystem of if you use this app, what other apps do you use? And a lot of the correlation was against like other sports news services like OneFootball and whatnot to consume when you're getting scores, in addition to a bunch of games like fantasy football and all of these types of games. And that I think the key thing there is really follow your data and understand what your data is showcasing that your audience behaviors are. Because let's just say for the Financial Times, people may be more focused in terms of a use case to utilize it for their to grow their career, to grow their professional life, and be able to showcase a wide range of like topics in the boardroom, for example, for CEOs and C-suites. But does this audience need that kind of loyalty and gamification? I think there are aspects of loyalty that will be useful and to reward customers, but do they need games? They are like key questions that you need to ask specifically for your audience, and understand if that kind of parallel requirement would be required for you to build. In our case, we found that there are promising things that you could do that helps assist with engagement, but are not key drivers for engagement. For example, the crosswords tool that we've introduced about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, and just to build on that, a couple of things. I mean, I think there are ways that news organizations kind of add that FOMO. So, you get a push notification who said, especially like on the weekends, when you were talking about that, it might have been a story you missed during the week that would be more, you'd be in a better context to read on the weekend. Now, there's one thing that reminded me of when we were talking about this is that, and this is more than a decade ago, the Straits Times in Singapore had this thing called Stomp, which was a user-generated content play. And they had, you would get various levels. So, you'd be a super stomper if you had submitted 5 or 6 stories. So with community features, which definitely I think are becoming more common in news organizations and news media, you'll see those then you start to see gamification brought in. So I'm going to try to get through as many of these questions as we've got. So another question from Benjamin. I'm going to ask Muj first, and then Heikki, maybe you can give us an overview of a wider range of apps. Do you make it mandatory for people to register or subscribe to use the app? So, I mean, is it, what's the porousness of the app? Is there a kind of a meter, or is it's only for a registered or subscriber experience?
Yeah, so from an app perspective, we are driving registrations quite heavily. So one of the first gates to access content is the registration prompt, and that gives you access to 3 articles for the month. So if there are why it's really important to focus on registered users, especially in the app space, or focus on creating warm users, is because the app is your device to have warm users so that you can ultimately send push notifications and re-engage customers. If you're really fighting for real estate on the app home screen, right? And if you can fight for that real estate and have an app that is either on the home screen or at least on a device, push notifications can be enabled, and ways of contacting that customer if they have opted in. That's why it's mega important to enable push notifications really, really early on in any kind of first app open experiences. What am I trying to say here? I think with having warm users, you're not going to be able to engage customers every single day. There might just be something on the news agenda that is something that you're just not interested in for weeks, and then in 3 weeks' time, Trump does something crazy again and changes the whole tariff structure again, and then you'd be interested again. But ensuring that you have access to communicate with the customer because they have the app on their device and they are contactable is one of the most important things for the user, and giving them some form of value and value exchange to be able to get the push notifications, which in our case is access now, create an account, get access to free contents, so that at least the drip feeding of those moments could be accessible during that month is really, really important to us. So, and the app is a key kind of player for creating that warm audience.
Yep. And I'll respond to that a little bit as well. I mean, one of the features that we saw that was not used nearly enough by news organizations was in-app messaging. So you had push notifications, but after the onboarding screens, it was very rare for any of the news organizations that we worked with to use in-app messaging. So in-app messaging doesn't require an opt-in, so it can be used for, you could have an onboarding sequence for someone who after 3 times they open up the app, you could nudge them to enable push notifications, or you say, have you tried our puzzles, or something like that. But there's a number of different channels, and one thing, Airship, which is one of the major push providers, but even One Signal, I mean, all of the push providers say, whether it's onboarding and preventing that sort of day 1, day 7 cliff, or whether it's push notifications, using multiple channels to reach your new users on the app, or even to reach new subscribers or new registered users, is really important to build those habits. So Heikki, I just wanted to throw that question to you. Across all of the apps that you build, I mean, I noticed that we started to witness a huge uptick in demand for these kind of two-step process. So before it was kind of like hard paywall or no paywall. So again, the question that we were asked about this, but do you see more publishers moving to this, the app is an acquisition tool, then they get registered, and then they get subscriptions. So that kind of two-step conversion process. Do you see more of that now with publishers you're working with?
Definitely, yeah. It's a good way. You have kind of the web as or general, awareness, then web, but then of course we believe that get the people download the app, be free users, then be even free subscribers for something, and then going tiered up towards to become really the loyals, which everybody wants their audience to be in big volumes. And then you see it from the stats that the value for these kind of users is very, very high. The stickiness is also high, so you should serve them as really your premium customers, and then, as said, learning from their behavior, serving them as individuals. I'm interested in this and this, and the personalization, targeting with content creation with push messages is really a key. And then a push message should feel like it's not a spam for me. It's a service reminding me of that article, or reminding that game starting, or it's a service function, like your airplane is leaving, go to the gate, otherwise you'll miss it. And this should be the attitude, not spamming, but serving the audience. They are valuable for you, and you've created this connection. So that's how we see that the trend is going towards. And then it's first party. It's really tight connection, which is great.
And I'll just use this little comment to segue into the next question, which is, again, going to the Straits Times, their app and their onboarding screens. Again, free to use initially, but in their onboarding screens, they say if you register, that will allow you to personalize the app. So there's an immediate value exchange. It's explained quite clearly on the onboarding screens, and it moves you into this funnel from being an unknown user to a known user, which is that first party data that Heikki's referred to a couple of times. So I'll use that as a clever segue, hopefully a clever segue. So we've got a question for Heikki. Any experiences or insights on personalizing the app for the user, keeping in mind privacy issues and regulations? And Muj, it might also be then how has the FT evolved its personalization strategy? So Heikki, first, the kind of broad trends in that. Are you seeing more personalization, and how do you strike that balance in terms of privacy and personalization?
Well, it should be based on the user's kind of willingness to personalize stuff. That's kind of like, I want to follow this and this and this. So it's kind of that is the easy piece. And then of course, when you start personalizing based on other data, you need to have a consent for stuff that we are really strict, of course, with GDPR and everything. But I believe that it's also a service function that me as a user, I like to be, targeted on my personalized wishes and needs, and then I'm willing to give out more of my data, and so it has to be a two-way street in a balanced way, and then it works well. That's my
So just on that, like just to touch on that, the key principle that we have is there needs to be a value of exchange in order for at every single touch point when you are asking for some kind of personalization or tailoring to make it the service that you think it would be great for this user, but knowing who your audience is deeply and understanding at what touch points they come in. It could be an onboarding, it could be when they've clicked onto a certain topic, it could be when they're searching for things. There's ways to kind of feed into that personalization. In general, right now, the long-term kind of thought is a big lever around like personalization should be something that you naturally build up through your actions and repeated actions, as well as specific like things that you consume as well. So actions mean like you go and you're interested in certain topics, and then consumption experience being I've followed I've been reading a lot of Trump content recently. Not that that's me. So and those things should start to then have some level of like thoughtful assistant approach where you're thinking about how can we auto personalize to the customer in addition to explicit personalization. And I think those two have very different approaches and very different data that you can consume and auto do something off the back of. So we are right now rethinking a lot of that at the FT. Can't say too much more about that, but they
We'll have
are
to get you back in a while, Muj.
yeah, maybe in next year. But yeah, I think there's a lot around that space, especially with how much data we have, firstly, and how much AI can play a big part of becoming some level of an assistant to personalization, and also a level of automated personalization as well.
So I'm going to squeeze in one last question. I know we're at time, but I think this is an important question. And the question is, what about Gen Z, Gen Z? They mostly get their news from media, social media, or news influencers. How do we attract them to apps? And there's another question about reporting strategies they've taken for attracting new audiences. And I'll just say this: the WAN-IFRA, we recently launched the Future Audiences Initiative, and we're really excited to talk about that. So feel free to reach out about that. But back to Gen Z and apps, because direct traffic with Gen Z, and then apps being further down the conversion funnel. How do you engage Gen Z in apps?
I can start to
Take a
take that.
stab.
Yeah, so in general, I think you have to understand where your users are, and Gen Z are on social media, on games, on and understanding that ecosystem of where they're at and tapping into that. So if that is they are following the FT on TikTok or Instagram, then doing things there that then help people to gradually loop into the main app, and but you may take a slightly different approach there to the way that you do in X, where you have much more experience and people who are in that younger audiences bucket. So taking different approaches in terms of a much slower approach to meeting them where they are and slowly bringing them in is really important. The second thing is making sure that the tools that you have are what younger audiences expect. And you either do a really good job of it or don't do it at all. So making sure that those things are really making sure that that level of expectation is there in your app is really important, because if it's half-baked, a half-baked feature like Reels in a news app, and it's just really choppy and people expect better, people are going to come see the experience, judge the experience far more than other audiences that are in the older generational bucket, and leave. And it's much harder for customers to come back. So meeting customers where they're at and meeting their expectations on the app are two really important things I'd call out.
Heikki, any experience some of your customers have had?
Yeah, it's of course social media is key, and then the kind of content you have within apps. I have an example of a kind of a news app. This is within the sports scene. It's like the app for Arsenal fans. So it's Arsenal Fan TV. It's a separate organization from Arsenal Football. But this app. There's a video feed that it checks Arsenal Fan TV's YouTube channel every minute, and if there's a new video in, it pulls it automatically into the app. So this app has 1,500 latest fan videos built in a chronological order. So this is simple content coming to the displays now on a channel which they also own. I would think that's kind of thing that it's easy to do and build in a way that TikTok here does this, Instagram does this, YouTube does this. And as said, they can be in a good way integrated into the app. So basically, the user doesn't have to go to Instagram all the time or TikTok all the time. So sometimes you have this selection of these already in your app, and still, so it's. I think that approach makes a lot of sense for young people to gain their loyalty and how often they come back to an app and what kind of content they find there.
And I'll just add one last bit of detail. So I mentioned the Baltimore Banner before, and out of a newsroom of 55 people, they have 2 social video producers. And so their VP of product wanted to make sure that that content was integrated into the app, because he said those are the 2 people who get name checked in Baltimore. So people see them on the street and they recognize them. Now, instead of, basically we built a vertical video carousel in the app, PugPig did. And I would say it was the one thing that meaningfully increased video engagement in apps. Just pulling in YouTube wasn't really moving the dial that much for a lot of apps customers, but having that vertical video, they increased over 3 months about 10% in terms of their video views, but also they saw it as a retention driver. So, it's just being smart about that. I'm overtime now, and we could probably talk about this for 10, 15 minutes more, but this is between me and my Thanksgiving dinner. So I just wanted to thank Muj and Heikki, both of you, for all of your wonderful expertise. I want to thank everybody who attended for all of your questions. We got through almost all of them, and look for details for the next WIZONE webinar. Thank you all.
Thanks for all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.